The last couple of days have been wild if you've been part of the anime community, because as you know, the whole political movement has been argued for years now, right? And we're getting to the point where people are saying that anime is political. I mean, we got that viral clip, we got Chibi reviews, other content creators just arguing this because it's not political. There's two spectrums here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And we're gonna start with actually answering, is anime political? Of course it is. And this is not an argument. And you wanna know why? Because everything is literally political if you look deep enough.
And when everyone's
Political.
no one will be.
If you're delusional enough to go find the political things that you want to look at. Because at the end of the day, and this is a fact, right? Every story has been told. So it's easy for you to watch something like One Piece and see, oh, One Piece is fighting against the government. And you go and assign that to reality and say, well, look, for example, the whole thing that's happening in Nepal, right? They're fighting against the government. They're flying the One Piece pirate flag. See, that was just made political, right? And it's not because One Piece is inherently political. It's because somebody saw the connection to real life events and made that connection, right? Because I've been watching One Piece since like early 2000s. And not once when I was watching One Piece did I say, you know what? Maybe I should stand up against the government, right? Maybe I should go sell the high seas, right? Because while you could definitely make the connection that One Piece is political, I know the difference between fiction and real life. I don't have to connect the things that are happening in an anime to a real life event and make my whole personality around that. Because if you look at every single piece of media through the lens that you're trying to find politics or propaganda, how can you enjoy anything? And I know what the haters are going to say, right? The other side of the spectrum. They're going to sit here and tell you that you're only watching the anime or the TV show on the surface level. But here's another fact, right? If I were to get 100 people, right? If I were to get 100 people, put them in a room and ask them, what is 2 plus 2? Every single person, unless, you know, they have a learning disability, they're going to say 2 plus 2 is 4, right? But if I were to get 100 people and show them the first episode of One Piece and ask them what are the political agendas being pushed in this anime, you're going to get 100 different answers. And you're going to see some wild ones. You're going to see some wild ones, right? So that should give you proof that not everybody thinks the same. Not everybody is looking through the right lens, and that it's not an objective fact that it is political. And I mean, I want to look at something here, right? Something super easy here, right? Shibi made this post a couple of days ago asking, all art is political. In response to this post, explain to me how this is political. Now, me as a regular person, I look at this picture and I say, to me, that's just fan service, right? But I could also, if I wanted to, and I wanted to be delusional enough, I could sit here and write a 50-page paper about how this is misogynistic, how this is exploitation of women and the women figure. And I could just sit here and do that. But that will make me delusional. Because at the end of the day, right, anime is a business. They're marketing to a certain audience, right? And whether you like it or not, right, fan service, a lot of people like it. There's a reason why the whole hentai industry exists. There are people that are willing to pay for that type of content. It's the same thing with the whole porn industry, right? So to me, I look at this and I don't think it's the exploitation of women or taking advantage of women or anything like that. I just look like well, yeah, it's a woman that's in a in a situation, and yeah, it's there to arouse and get a reaction from, I would guess, the male audience. And sure, there are probably women out there that think this is attractive as well, right? It's not a male exclusive thing. And that's the way I look at it. But no, people will actually look at this scene and just go down that rabbit hole and say that this is misogynistic or exploitation of women. I promise you, somebody out there is thinking this. And that's how they make it political, because that's what they do. And that's how they make every anime political. Again, it's as political as you want it to be, right? And it's not, there's no right or wrong answer here, right? Because again, you can go down the rabbit hole of anything and just come up with some BS. And I know, at least if you're in the US, and I'm sure every other country out there, if you take like your English or your language respective class, right, where you have to sit down, read a book, and I know everybody has lived through this, right? The teacher asks you, why is the character wearing a red shirt? Right? Some BS. And you now have to sit here and explain to the teacher why that character is wearing a red shirt. When in reality, when the author was writing this book, he probably saw a red mug in the middle of nowhere and said, well, I'm going to make the shirt red. And that's it. But we human beings tend to actually look deeper and try to find meaning in things that have no meaning, right? I mean, the whole thing with the whole Trash Taste or whatever that anime podcast, when they were talking about anime and One Piece being political and how Oda was using the name of Che Guevara's like ship in the anime. Like, he probably thought the name was cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the whole Bleach scenario, right? Like, imagine if we say that Tite Kubo has a fetish for the Spanish language because of the espada and all the Spanish related names in there, right? Like, there are people crazy enough to go down that rabbit hole. When in reality, Tite Kubo, whenever he was, naming all the Bleach Spanish related names and techniques, he probably thought the Spanish was a cool language. You know what I mean? Like, man, I'm telling you, and it's not just anime, right? It happens with everything related to media, right? For example, in anime, in Japan, manga, ever since I think the early 80s, right? When Saint Seiya came out and the yaoi started getting popular over there in Japan, and we started seeing the boys love genre start coming into fruition, right? Which, I mean, even this anime season, we have The Summer Hikaru Died, and I make content on TikTok about that anime, talking about how, it's a really nice horror anime. I don't like horror anime because usually they tend to be crap, but this is an actual good one with a good plot. And some of the comments that I got was like, oh, it's a boys love. Like, it's about two males, having a relationship or whatever the case may be. It's 2025, right? And people would, in the West, especially here in the US, they would argue that something like The Summer Hikaru Died is trying to push a gay agenda. And I'm like, well, you're like 40 years behind the curve. Because again, this is a Japanese cartoon, a Japanese manga that has been doing the yaoi, the boy love thing for years. They're not trying to push anything on you. They're just telling a story that so happens that two boys are in love with each other, right? And because in the US and the West, we haven't experienced that, they would take that as a propaganda to make everybody gay. Again, there are people that actually believe this. It's wild, man. It's wild. Either way, I just wanted to talk on this because it's really nonsense, right? It's a real nonsense issue. It's same thing with the whole fan service of anime out there. Like, oh, anime tourism. If you don't like fan service, you're an anime tourist. It's just name calling. It's just saying empty things because at the end of the day, we love arguing with each other. That's really it. You could say, the sky is blue and somebody will argue, no, you're wrong. It's green. Everybody will argue that. But let me know what you think about this. Let me know if you actually think anime is political. Let me hear your take on this. And like always, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode. Peace out. Bye.